Welcome to the Dream Architect Life podcast. I'm Brian Sweet and very excited today to talk with our guest. I think you're going to find this fascinating. Our guest today is Lee Brower, who's the founder and chief empowerment officer of Empowered Wealth, which is an international business family consulting, coaching, and mentoring firm, and out of St. George, Utah, one of my favorite locations. Lee is also an international advocate, and you'll see this in the background if you're watching the video, for gratitude. And he has been featured in best-selling book and movie The Secret, and has been on all sorts of television shows, podcasts, radio programs, including the Today Show. And where I met Lee was at a entrepreneurial coaching class called Strategic Coach, which he has been part of for more than 20 years, serving as actually one of their many amazing coaches. So Lee, welcome to the show.
Brian, always good to be with you, my friend.
Well, thank you much. It's going to be an exciting podcast, and been looking forward to this for a long time. You have interesting stories and history and done some amazing things in your life. And so I'm excited to share you with our audience today. So
I'll just say this right away. We're only just beginning, Brian. We're just beginning. So.
I love it. Yeah. And that's one of the things I love to get the message across to our audience is, anything's possible. And just because of age, that doesn't mean anything. So keep going. Perfect. Thank you for that comment. That was awesome.
Well, the only thing I didn't like about your response is you used the age word. So I don't use that word. So
okay. Well, there we go. We'll have to learn better. Thank you.
I fired the last doctor that said for somebody your age. I said, no, we don't talk that way.
No, I get it. Some people like look at age and say, well, just because I'm X years old, I can't do that. And I totally disagree with that. So, yeah. Anyway, so Lee, just maybe give the audience a little background on your story. Where did you get started and what got you to where you're at today?
Yeah, we'll make it short and sweet. When I was in college, I started working side jobs to try to keep a living there. I had a football scholarship, thank goodness. Started selling mutual funds, that kind of a thing, and ended up being a top salesman. Was recruited into a company in Los Angeles after graduating that did primarily estate planning. They had clients like the Lyndon B. Johnson family, Dean Martin. So I could technically say they were my clients, but there's 5 ways to tell the truth without telling a lie. What that means really is I carried the files into the room. But I was like a kid in a candy store, okay? I mean, I was like, whoa, look at this. I was obsessed with estate planning. I literally would go to court every Friday, sit with these other attorneys. I carried probate records in my briefcase so I could show people. I had Marilyn Monroe's. I had Ernst from Ernst and Ernst. I had a lot of different ones to show the disaster at that time. State tax rates were much higher than they are now, and that was a real focus. And I worked with that company for several years. Became a vice president, and it was national. They spun off to go national, created their own company in Texas, and I moved to Oregon and started my own operation up there. I went up there primarily because I wanted a good place to raise children. And so I thought, well, working on a farm was a good place. And we got actively involved in raising all kinds of critters from thoroughbred horses to jungle cats. We had a cougar in the house, believe it or not, but we raised cheetahs, servals, margays. A lot of people don't know that about me. This is these little side stories, but and the whole process, what we were doing is we were buying farms that we learned how to use. They had to be profitable, so we had different sources of revenue to make them profitable, and that was good. And I ended up selling that company to the company that had moved to Texas, and ended up then buying a small company in Salt Lake City. Circuitously, because I went to Texas for a while and came back, and still enamored and focused on estate planning, but had our own practice. Somewhere along the line, we got involved in a number of different ventures. So I was an entrepreneur simultaneously to that, got involved in everything from steel fabrication to a number of other ones we were either on the board or involved actively in what was going on. A number of charitable. Um, at that time, also, I got invited to be on what they called, it was wasn't an official board, but it was what they called an advisory council with the Utah Jazz. And that opened up a whole bunch of other circumstances with me. Fortunate to have, I guess, my greatest calling, I would call it a calling, is I'm a father, and I've got we have 8 children, but between my wife and I, 8 children, and Lori and I have been married for a couple, 2, 3 decades now, and so we've got 20 grandchildren, and our 20th just arrived. We got our 21st on its way. So it's a busy life, and we have been focused on family. And I think that that's one of the things that caused me to make a shift in my profession. Anything that you do, you want to feel like it's meaningful. And when I look at statistics, and you've seen the statistics, Brian, where 97% of family wealth rarely survives. I think it's, past the third generation. So I'm sitting there thinking, why am I doing this? I'm making good money, but why? And and so you'd hear the argument, well, if you don't give it to you want to give it to the government or you want to give it to your kids, and that's nonsense. And that's what I started learning, because we do all these trusts and everything, and it goes away anyway. And it reached a point where I just said, for me to do what I do best with my entrepreneurial background and the success that I've had there and working with nonprofits, I stepped out of the financial services business. I really believe with all my heart, though, the right people in that business are the closest to the business owners, the closest to the families. They're the ones that get the confidence of it. However, the industry in and of itself is built in such a way that we could go into that deeper, but I especially think that AI is going to make a big difference, and it's going to contribute to the very best of the financial advisors being able to focus in on what are those things that families value more and most, because AI is not going to deliver it. Okay.
Right.
So, and so anyway, I guess I was early. Let's just put it that way. I guess I was early. Um, I would say because of my entrepreneurial background, the first call I usually get from most people is, can you help me with my business? And I love that. I love culture. I love creating it. But my response is, maybe you get your spouse and you come and spend 2 days with me and we'll decide. And they go, my spouse, what does he or she have to do with it? And I say, exactly. Okay, exactly. And so we look at things from a principle point of view. You know, I think people overvalue the concept of values. Um, yeah, if we had 50 people in the room and we said, raise your hand if you consider, the integrity a cornerstone value of your company, we'd have 50 people raise their hand and say, yeah, we do, but you've got 50 different definitions. So anyway, so it's led to, I've enjoyed 25 years of working with Strategic Coach. I consider them to be my best client, and I'm a client of theirs. So imagine being able to sit in a room 2 or 3 times every month with 40 or 50 extremely successful entrepreneurs and share their ideas. It's like having this incubator that you're just constantly bombarded with success stories and failure stories that we can learn from.
Yeah.
So
And I think the key thing is, learning from the failures. So, it's not that you failed, it's that you get to learn something so you don't have to have that same experience again. So, I'd love you to maybe go a little deeper with your value comment or value alignment. I think that could be an interesting conversation, if you have any other thoughts on that.
sure, this is something that I think sets us apart a little bit. I have these statements that people shock statements, and then I kind of back, so like I could say I don't believe in values. All right. And that's a shock statement. I don't believe in goals either, if you want to talk about that. That's a shock statement. There was a study done in 2009. I'll just give you a brief peek. And it was a study done by Harvard uh, um, Eller School of Management, Kellogg, and one other university. I'm trying to think. But it was called Goals Gone Wild. And they talked about how traditional goal setting in America has created more problems than created more problems than they solve. They've created problems for corporate America, caused cheating, a whole bunch of things. They're new concepts that the motivational people get excited about. You know what I mean? And so um, I'm a great believer in let me just put it to you this way, and then we'll get to principles because I think that's foundational of it. But can people be motivated to cheat, Brian?
Interesting statement. Can people be motivated to cheat? I'm sure yes.
Yeah, from an early age, think about it. Kids, they're going to get the prize if they do this, or they're going to get a whipping if they do that. And so it's really easy to look on the other paper. But as you move into corporate America, and the pressure gets on you to do these things, and you got everybody in the sales force doing this, and you got this, and all it takes is a little fudge here or a little fudge there. Then it's real easy. But let me ask you this question: can people be inspired to cheat? You see, that's a different question.
Very much so.
So imagine that, we have all these motivators out there, and then you've got people that inspire. And so now moving over to the concept of principles, I believe that most values, let me just put it to you this way, most rules are meant to be broken, right? And I think values fall into that same question. If I had 50 people, just like I said, 50 people say, what's your definition of integrity? I'd have 50 different definitions.
Mm-hmm.
So when you create a company that's based upon so-called values, you're creating a company that's based upon judgment. So for example, if I'm in a meeting and I see a pen with your name on it, okay, and I pick it up and take it out, somebody else in the room is thinking he stole that. And I'm thinking, no, you put their name on it, they want me to advertise, I'll take it. And I'm not saying neither one is right or wrong, but it causes judgment. Principles are based upon agreements as opposed to values. Values are based upon interpretation. Principles are based upon what is it that you can always count on us to do?
I love that.
And so if companies would start looking at when we are in our best self, what can you always count on us to do? And that same thing is true with families. What is it we can always count on a sweet to do? And you want your kids to be able to give that answer. You know what I mean? What is it you can always count on a Brower to do? Brower power. Never underestimate the power of a Brower. Okay. I get my grandkids going. Okay.
That's a great one. I love it.
Well, but Browers are powerful. And then you collect stories. So prayerful, obedient, worthy, eternal, reverent, forthright, understanding, loving, and living in gratitude. We put 2 L's on there. But so then you collect stories that are principle based. And that's where the real power comes. Is when because that, look, I don't think any of your listeners, they're gonna have ever made a bad decision. How's that?
I love it.
Okay. I mean, I really don't. I mean, I think for the most part, I could be wrong and it's just judgment, but most decisions are aspirational. Okay. I want to be in the best shape of my life. I'm going to start working out. I decide, and that decide means to homicide, suicide, fratricide, pedicide means to kill it. So I'm going to kill the alternatives, cut it off. So I decide, kill the alternatives. Well, how do you kill the alternatives? Choices. Choices are the big determinant. So if I say I'm going to be in the best shape of my life and the alarm goes off at 5:30 in the morning, I have a choice. Hit the snooze button. And so principles, you see, when you start talking about choices are the great decisions that were made, and principles are help you make better choices. What is it that you can always count on us to do? Another little example, I was talking to a YPO group. And I asked them, I said, can you think of a moment when you felt particularly proud to be a part of your family or your business? One young man raised his hand and he says, oh yeah, just last week. And I said, well, tell us more. And he says, yeah, I have 4 kids, 9 and under. They'd never been on a hike. And so I decided to take them, and my wife and I got them, and probably picked a route that was a little tough for them because pretty soon there's some climbing over boulders, and a couple of them are crying, and I'm dragging them along. Where the kids are helping each other, they're picking each other. And then it started to rain. Now we're not only climbing, but we're sliding, and we're coming over the other side, and couple kids are crying, and the other ones are consoling them, and we're just kind of getting down, and then the sun comes out. And he says, coming down the bottom as the sun comes out, he turned, and I said, all right, stop right there. Oh, no, he says, the sun comes out, and I look back, and there was Mama Duckling with her 4 little ducklings falling behind her. And he chokes up. And I go, wow, okay. I said, close your eyes. So he closes his eyes. I said, what do you see? And he closes his eyes. I said, I see my wife, and I see the 4 little ducklings. I said, okay, great. Um, what else do you see? Look around. And he says, well, it's springtime, some yellow flowers. Yellow flowers were everywhere. I said, all right, that's a yellow flower moment. And so we go, okay, yellow flower moment. Now, my prediction is you go tell your kids about this yellow flower moment, and they're going to have future yellow flower moments that have nothing to do with flowers, have nothing to do with a hike, but have everything to do with the family coming together with grit and determination. And you're going to hear your kids one day say, is this a yellow flower moment?
Mm.
And everybody will understand what it means. And they're going to be, that's principle based because you start to base it upon what we can always count on you to do. And in a yellow flower moment, you can count on the family coming together, helping each other get over the metaphorical boulders, climb the hill, and know that the sun's going to come out. We do the same thing with companies. We find the principles as evidenced by the stories when they're in their best shit, when they're at their best self. What are those things? And they work, it works everywhere. It's like gravity. Okay. Principles are like gravity. So you can find those same principles. And so I can tell you story after story after story that have been named in our own family and companies that we've worked with that are helping people become better choice makers. And that's because they link them to principles. What are the principles? Family first, come together. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they become better choice makers. All they have to say is this a yellow flower moment, and it creates intimacy. This is something that they own, that if they said it in front of you, you wouldn't know what they were talking about, which gives them an identity. In today's world, we need to stick roots down for families. We've got AI writing suicide letters for teenagers.
Yes, sir.
You don't have roots down to know who they are. And you need to know who you are. And so and I think it's done in companies and we do it in families. And we help them identify the principles. What is it you can always count on a suite to do?
Yeah. I love this. And I think, your message there just really ties in with our audience and how we like to think. Because, life is, you want to have like dream bigger. Life's all about possibilities, but you got to have a certain mindset or principles, as you said, to make sure that really comes true.
Hey, Brittany here. In case you hadn't heard, our latest book, Dream Architecture, is available for the taking. Think about it like this. What is your biggest, wildest dream of what retirement could look like? Not the dream that your friends have, or your parents maybe had, or your coworkers. Your best dream, the unreasonable one, the one that you might have trouble admitting even to yourself. So that is what the Dream Architecture book is about. Hop on over to dreamarchitecturebook.com so you can start dreaming big today.
I'd love to maybe have you tell some more stories or, ways that people can utilize that kind of thinking to, propel them to better lives or, better moments, if you will. You have any other thoughts or comments, lessons that people could utilize to help them get through difficult times? And because sometimes people get to a point and they feel like, gee, that was a failure, and then they give up or they get frustrated. And thoughts.
Yeah, everything, what it's boiled down to, Ryan, what I come down to now is if what we're doing doesn't create positive generational impact, I don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay. And everything that you do, you learn from. And if that's the mindset, if you could ask me, um, I would say probably the greatest lesson that I've learned, or one of the greatest lessons I've learned, is that arriving can be more dangerous than failing.
Oh, for sure.
Okay. Success can lull you into comfort, and comfort can dull your purpose. So I've seen great leaders protect gratitude, protect their vision, and never stop challenging what's working in life. And does God waste experiences?
No.
Well, we do.
Yeah, for sure.
We do. Just like this yellow flower moment, that's an experience that would have just washed downstream. You know what I mean? And then it's gone. But God's going to use that experience. He'll use it. Somebody else somewhere, he'll find a way to use it. One of my great lessons for me was back in early 1990s when Mongolia was released from under the Russian control, okay, the Soviet Union. And I happened to be there. And I met with the president, young boy, literally 28 years old, that was designated as the one that was responsible for converting government-owned businesses into privately held businesses.
Hmm.
And I had my son with me. He was 17 years old at the time, just turned 18. We're just turning 18, so he's just a senior in high school. And what a great experience for him as we sat there talking to this guy and working with him. And we call him Zolo. Okay, now this is a Zolo moment, and because his name had so many consonants, you can't pronounce. And he's the one that said, "Just call me Zolo." Okay.
Oh,
So we were talking with him, and the conditions there were dire. Somebody be on the streets selling one stick of gum, and there was lots of pressure there because all the old Politburo had to be elected, and that was a big thing for them. So their campaign was why America was bad and democracy was bad, and elect us. And so you had that kind of an environment. And so I was talking to him, and he was telling me how many hours he worked. He said he'd go to work, and he would work, all day long, go home at midnight all day long, and then the only day he'd get off early was Sunday. And I said, "What drives you?" And he said, "Well, we have kids standing outside here in the cold, and we bring them in at 3 o'clock in the afternoon so that they can learn about democracy and they can learn about capitalism. And they want to learn so bad." So I'm sitting here, think about it, I'm sitting with my 17-year-old son. Are you listening to this? So it was rich with different lessons, but the big lesson came later. Because I was talking to him and I said, I asked him what drives you, and he says, "Well, the old Politburo had to get elected, and inflation rates were 100 or 200 over 200%. Interest rates were 120% on borrowing money, 60% passbook savings account. It was just out of whack." And so the newspaper came and asked me what I thought about it, and I told him the truth. And he said the next day I ended up at the police station, and he said, "You see these teeth, and they've been knocked out."
oh,
And he goes, "I learned right then and there." He said that everything that I own can be taken away from me like this. Okay. And I thought, my house, my car, everything. And then he said, "Everything can be taken away with me except for what I have right here." Okay. And that's mine. And so I'm sitting there listening to this. I wrote that down. I talked to, and that's why these kids were lining up and stuff. And I remember sharing it with my son, and we got talking about it, but it wasn't until maybe a year later that I got the full lesson of it, because I went back to my journal. And what he said was this: everything that I have, my house, my car, and everything like that, I can lose like this. But what I have right here, okay, nobody can take that away from me. Okay, I own it. But it's of no, here's the part that I didn't get. But it's of no value unless I give it away.
Mm.
And then it has a value of its own. And that really stuck with me. And that gets back to you have a guy walking with his kids on a hike, okay? And now he capitalizes that experience. See, the experience he has is only, he said that experience only was valuable to me and had no value to anybody else until I give it away. And so that's become a cornerstone thread that's kind of worked its way through. And how do you collect the experiences that we have as a family? How do you collect your own experiences that you learn from? And you create value from that by naming them, owning them, and tying them to a certain principle. And you can identify what are the principles for your company that you're living by. I just wrote a letter to a lady that from a company in Texas that she wrote me a thank you for we do a thing called Meaningful Monday. And
Yep.
she wrote me a letter just saying this has really just impacted her. She just worked for the company. And I wrote her back and I said, you know, your company that I've worked with has four principles. That's all they have. They're in the automobile industry. And the one is be in gratitude. Okay. Because not just be grateful for, and that's really important. You don't have to wait for the rainbow to enjoy the rain. You can be grateful in the experience, whatever it is. You can find what it is. And we could talk about how do you develop patterns of that, but that's another conversation. But so that's one. And then two, their second one is be nice. Okay. But then they have what are the agreements around being nice? When somebody comes within 20, we always, if they're 20 feet, we always respond this way. It's what you can count on us to always do. Be an expert. Our mechanics are constantly learning and we're all constantly improving, self-improvement, etc. And number four is do what's in the best interest of the company, even if it costs you money. And I mean, they sold a car for $1 once. I mean, you know, I mean, so the things that they're doing is amazing and they're very profitable. And the CEO founder, he goes around to every dealership every month and collects stories around those four principles. And they've collected them now. So if you go to work for that company, what does it mean to be nice? Well, go to our website, take a look. And they're all stories. So I responded to her saying today how she's a great example of that and what a wonderful environment she gets to work in because it helps if you know you're going to collect stories around the principles, it helps your behavior. And we need more of that. We need more leaders that are principle based, not values based, principle based.
Yeah, and I think the story part just helps people relate to it or understand it better.
Mhm.
Um, One thing I would love you to do sometime before we end, though, is I totally agree, and I thank you for bringing up Meaningful Monday. I think I would love you to maybe how do people get to that because I think it's a short little segment every Monday, but boy, if you want to start your week out, I get it every week, and so it's just a really great way to get your thinking right, uh, early in the week. And you might want to listen to it every day of the week until the next one comes out if you need a little motivator. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that, Lee, that's really, I think, well done.
Well, I actually told her a story in this letter, so it's fresh in mind. People ask when I start Meaningful Monday, I started it for me because you may know that I do a video to myself on the last day of the year, and I've been doing that for quite some time. And it's talking to me as though I'm out a year from now. So Lee, I basically say if you're watching this video, congratulations, man, you made it through another year. Last year you said you wanted to do this, but I'm saying this on this year, but I'm talking as though I'm out a year. You said you want to achieve it, and it's just been an amazing experience. But then I said, well, why don't I do that weekly? So I started doing it weekly, and then people say, well, you send it to me. And so then if I'm going to send it to somebody, I can't be as honest, quite frankly. You know what I'm saying? Because when I'm talking to myself, I'm being brutal. I'm not going to share it with you. Okay. You got to stop doing this. You got to go do this. You know what I mean? I don't let even my wife see that one. All right. This is between me and me and me. She doesn't even know where I hide it. But the Meaningful Mondays, then I kind of had to make a twist, and it's a good experience for me because I'm really talking to myself,
Yeah.
and it's not pre-recorded, it's not fancy dancy, you know what I mean? It's just 5 minutes roughly of just here's top of mind. And I always begin with I'm grateful to be here and I'm glad to be here. That's why everyone starts that way since May of 2014. So I've been doing this since January of 2014. But May, I got a call from a client's son. His father had esophageal cancer. And he said he gathers us together every Monday. We go over our kids, these were young adult kids, and we go over to his house and we watch Meaningful Monday, and he just loves it. And he said, could you surprise him? Could you come out and do your Meaningful Monday from there?
Oh, oh,
Buffalo, New York is not an easy place to get to.
yeah, exactly.
So I said, absolutely. So I get there, he picks me up, he takes me into the kitchen, hides me behind the bar. I'm sitting on the floor in the kitchen. On the other side is the living room. Okay. So I did a little intro that says, hi, this is Lee Brower. This is this week's Meaningful Monday. And then I'm coming to you live from Buffalo, New York. Okay. But the cameras were rolling. So I had my phone with me, but so I just stepped out and said, I'm coming to you from Buffalo, New York, live from the such and such family home. And of course, the emotions just went off the charts. Okay.
Yes.
And I asked the two boys, I said, can you think of a moment when you felt particularly proud of your father and what he's been going through?
Ooh.
Okay.
Ooh.
And one of them said, I have never heard him say, when somebody asks him how he's doing, I have heard him say every time, I'm glad to be here. So my next, I get emotional. My next Meaningful Monday, how could I stop? I'm grateful to be here and I'm glad to be here.
Glad to be here. That's a great, I never knew that story, Lee. Thank you for sharing that.
So he passed a year or so afterwards, but that keeps me going.
Yeah, it's little things like that that have such an impact, and just being conscious of doing those things, or giving of yourself, just so meaningful. So how would somebody get your meaningful?
Meaningful Monday, probably we don't market. The easiest way is to go to leebrower.com and you'll see them right there. We don't market you. We don't sell you anything. You can sign up for them and we'll email them to you, or you can just go to Lee Brower. Easier if we mail them to you for your sake. We're not going to mail you anything else. We don't do that. It's not high promotion. It's just my thought for the week. And it usually centers around something that's happened it's carefully and prayerfully, you know what I mean? It's just something that I sit down with and I kind of catch something during the week, and it helps me. So it's things that help me, and it's good.
Yeah, and I will tell you, just from me personally listening to it every week, I love little things like that, just something to get your mind in the right frame to start the day. And you have so many great experiences and ways of sharing stories that I think everybody that wants to have a little better viewpoint and accomplish more. If that doesn't set the framework, probably nothing will. So anyway, thank you for doing that. And
That's very kind of you to say that. It works for me, and I know that it works. Some people use it in their company. They do it on Monday morning, I've been told, and share it. And so I'm grateful that even if it helps one person, it's worthwhile. So
yeah, no, I totally agree. So, I mean, you have done so much and helped so many people and businesses, and just had such a great impact. What are some of your biggest, most important dreams or aspirations for your future? What for the things that you can tell us from your little videos that you're doing once a year, or what's some of the secrets in there?
well, I think that I break entrepreneurs, or I break thinking, let's just call it thinking, into two broad categories. Okay. And I think in today's world, this is essential to kind of know this. Category one, there's nothing wrong with it. If you look at it from an entrepreneurial standpoint, it creates tremendous value. But I call it a reservoir mindset. And so a reservoir mindset is, how much water can I get in my reservoir? How much shoreline can I get around my reservoir? How do I get fish in a reservoir? I buy them. And I'm going to buy big ones so I can get a lot of people fishing my reservoir. Okay. And look at that guy's boat. I want to have a boat bigger than that one. highly motivational that we talked about a little bit earlier. That's motivation. Motivation is temporary, for example. Motivation, if it has a destination, isn't inspirational. So contrast that, say, with a river versus a reservoir. River mindset, okay, would be more interested in flow. When you're in flow, you attract. You attract tributaries naturally. You attract spawning beds naturally. Wildlife come to your shores and drink and breed and eat, and they thrive. And at the same time that you're doing that, you're also irrigating crops, you're irrigating pastures, and you're creating electricity. And so that's the mindset. And to me, in today's world, you have a lot of what I call arrows in. And I think gratitude is at the cornerstone of everything that we do, everything. I was in the movie The Secret, didn't even know I was in it till it was out. Um, so that was kind of interesting. But they had asked me what I considered to be the biggest secret, and I shared a story around gratitude, and then that attracted even more gratitude. I think that's the glue that holds families together instead of it all being about me, today's world. Gosh, I pointed my camera at a 3-year-old granddaughter and she knew exactly how to pose. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? I'm like, okay, we got to turn the arrows out, girl, and so it's, anyway, I truly think that uh, the vision of if we can if I can be a part of a group that isn't there's a reason there's so many mastermind groups out there, and this is a hasty generalization. Okay, so it's not everybody, but basically it's because it's easy money.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody starts it and they're in the entertainment business.
Yep.
I got this speaker to come. I got this speaker to come. I got this speaker to come. I don't want that. I've had it. I've been on the circuit. I've shared the stage with everybody from Donald Trump to Tony Robbins. Okay, and one of the things it really discouraged me more than it encouraged me. I wasn't there selling anything, so I was a speaker. And when you can see certain speakers, and I'm not accusing Tony or Trump or anybody else of this. I'm just saying, but when you see speakers rehearsing spontaneity, that discouraged me. Okay. And so the show, and so yes, those places are great places to meet people. They're great things to get encouraged. They're great places to be motivated. Okay. But then you have to come back and get your fix.
Yeah.
And it's always who's on the agenda, what's speaking. That determines whether you go. I think if we could build an organization of like-minded thinkers, leaders of families and businesses that felt more like shareholders, okay. So when you came together, there's enough wisdom in that room. We don't need to bring somebody in. We can bring in occasionally, bring in, but how do we really focus in on creating generations that are going to follow us, that are going to be better, stronger, and make things happen? So my vision of the future, what sustains me, is one, never arrive. The enemy of thriving is arriving, and I don't want to. Yeah, I absolutely want no destinations in my life. I want no finish lines. Um, I want to be in motion. I mean, retirement to me, just my sense of it is how often can you check the temperature of the pool? You know what I mean? How many 20-foot putts can I make? And you got all this wisdom that you've accumulated and that could be put to good use. And if we can focus it on the next generations who are isolated because of these things, right? They're isolated because of these, and we're missing the opportunity to spend more time with them, grow. And I think there's a royal generation coming up. I really, really do. We've seen some amazing young people, and and I love the entrepreneurial mindset. I think you take entrepreneurs, Brian. When you wake up every morning, you ask yourself, how do I make this world better? How do I do things faster, better, cheaper? That's the entrepreneurial mindset. Okay. You don't wake up and say, who's going to be the whale in the room so I can hit them up? And what do I have to say? What do I have to say? So and this whale, they're different, but how do I craft my language to make this one? You're up there trying to, how do I get money? How do I get votes? That we know that isn't working. We know that isn't working, and they're living off of contempt. They're collecting dollars through contempt.
Yeah.
And that's wrong. It doesn't feel good. Nobody likes it. And I think there's a generation of people coming up, and uh, no finish lines, period. So whatever it is. And I don't think if you took 2 words, Brian, I'm going to give you 2 words. Okay. I was sitting next to a guy on an airplane last week and we had a great conversation. And he said, "Yeah, I just sold my business." I said, "Oh, really? How's that going for you?" He said, "I love it." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Tell me." And he says, "Well, I was managing about 150 people. And now I'm managing over 1,000." He says, "It's fun." I think he says, "I really enjoy doing it." I said, "Well, what's next?" He says, "Well, the company bought us. They're going to sell it in about 3 years." And I said, "Then what are you going to do?" He says, "Well, I'll make a lot of money." I said, "Really? Okay." And so that, and he went, "So that," and I said, "Yeah, so that," and he goes, "Well, so that I guess we can, I can help my kids buy their houses, and I can." "So you're going to ruin them?" "Well, no, no, no. And we'll be able to travel. We'll be able to do that." I said, "So that," and the thing that's missing from most people's vocabulary is the "so that."
That, yeah, no, that such great advice.
And if you just put "so that," I want to do this, I want to go here, so that, get to the why. And that's where inspiration comes from. But when you have a destination, typically the destination is arriving, and the enemy of thriving is arriving. So if you had something that you could see beyond that, something that inspires you, then his decision could have been, "I'm going to sell this business so that I'll be able to do more of this." And if it's arrows in, it's the destination. Arrows in is a lagging indicator.
Yeah.
Lagging indicator. Too many people. I just wrote down a quote today. Uh, uh, what you do should dictate how you feel, not the opposite.
Mhm.
Instead of what you feel is what you do. So, I mean, I just think that we have such an opportunity right now as leaders to share our wisdom, to help people understand principle-based leadership, not values-based leadership. Hitler had values, for crying out loud. Everybody has values. Values is just what you do. Principles are based upon agreements. They're based upon ethical agreements, enduring principles. Gravity is an enduring principle.
Yeah. Well, what's what I love about you, Lee. You just how you think and why you do what you do it just oozes out of you in such a great way. And I'm fascinated how fast the time goes when I chat with you. But maybe one final question before we have to sign off. But is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you, or is there any one piece of advice that you'd like to leave the audience with? Not that you haven't given them lots of great things, but anything?
Yes, I got a whole bunch of them, but I'll give you one.
Well, you can give me two if you'd like, because they're
Well,
always
they kind of merge together. Okay. Think of your brain. Think of your brain as the richest soil in the world. Okay. And if I put a tansy seed in, a tansy is a beautiful yellow flower. But if being back in my agricultural days, if my sheep ate that, they would die. Okay, they blow it up and die. Beautiful flower. Or I could put a wheat seed in there that's going to nourish and be nourishment. Okay. Does the soil care? This nourishment, is the soil just saying, "No, let's give both to both of them"? I think the brain works the same way, the subconscious brain. It works 24 hours a day and always wants to please what it's told to please, what you put into it. All right. So one of the things I was doing, I go big every single meeting that I have. When I wake up in the morning, I have a rock. Take the rock, I grab it. Gratitude is at the cornerstone of everything that I do. Okay. Gosh, I could talk to you about that. A boy. I love it. I love it. Okay. And there's a whole story behind the rock. It's a bypass to bias. It wakes me up and I think about the greatest blessings that I have and what we're doing. But going back to the brain and the concept, I was doing a positive focus and strategic coach one time. I had 2 guys manage because I go big. I've 6,000 people at Javits Center sharing the stage with Trump. I went big. I didn't care. I called Lori ahead of time, said, I don't know about this. She said, don't you dare skip it. So, okay, so I did it. I did it. And it was so awesome. I had to take out my camera and take a picture of all these people, the buzz, just going. But to me, gratitude is the greatest secret of all. Okay, the greatest secret of all. Now, when you say, I need to, I have to, I got to, it's almost taking you out of gratitude because your subconscious mind, what does it hear? So when I was listening to, so I had everybody paired up sharing a go big, what I call go big, begin in gratitude. Okay. So they're sharing, and I look around the room and dopamine and serotonin is bouncing off the wall because all you have to do is ask and you got this going. So I'm watching this and I'm feeling really good. So then I said, well, look, while you're all standing up there sharing something positive, how about sharing something that you feel like you would really like to find an answer for? Something that you really need that you want to find an answer for. So everybody thought about it and then they started sharing and the energy went just this way. You could just feel it. And I go, what the heck? And then I remembered a study that was done by 4 or 5 universities that talked about, they gave anagrams to everybody. And they took one group and said, just do the anagram. Anagram is taking a word and find how many words you can make out of these letters. Second group, before you do it, do the Tony Robbins thing. I'm amazing. I'm great. I can do anything. Okay. Group 1 and 2, which one do you think outperformed?
2.
No, identical results.
Oh, okay.
Science tells you you've been laying down too many negative things for that to just layer a little thin one on there. You don't get much improvement there. You have to put a lot of time. You have to put a lot of time saying that. You can't just do it boom, boom. Third group, they asked them to ask positive interrogatories. Can I do this? How can I see this thing? Now you're engaging the subconscious mind. It can't ignore a question. They outperformed the other 2 significantly.
Sure.
Okay. So I remember that study and I said, all right, stop, everybody stop. Because I was hearing, I need to. And that was crazy. So I said, all right, stop. Can you reframe that in the form of a question? And so they went back. And so people started writing down, so we started putting up questions. So one guy was right to us. One of his I need tos was, I need to find some way to strengthen, I need to strengthen the relationship with my wife. And I thought, okay, reframe it. So he finally reframed it by saying, what can I do today to strengthen my wife? What can I do today to strengthen the relationship with my wife? Because what is the subconscious mind here? The relationship is bad. So he said, so he called me a couple of weeks later. He says, instead of getting up in the morning, I looked down at her and she was laying there. And he says, normally, he said, I thought about this afterwards. He said, normally I would have thought this, my subconscious mind would have gone, see, this is why you need to, this is why you need to strengthen the relationship. And it's going to continue to show you, because you planted that seed. It's going to show you all the reasons why you need to strengthen the relationship. And so he said, but he said, I've been putting that question in. He says, so I woke up that first day we came back and I looked at her for a second and that thought didn't come to me. He said, a thought came to me, write her a little note, put her on the pillow, tell her how cute she looks. And so what I've realized, and I can give you experience after experience, because I got that incubator, I can throw it out there, but I got all these different experiences. And I've learned that too many of us chase questions when we should be, chase answers when we could be chasing questions. Can I find something good about my wife? And then don't put a question mark, because then you could add in such a way so that these great connectors on the end of it that get your subconscious mind, instead of focus on the problem, they're focusing on the solution. We spend way too much of our time focusing in on problems and not enough time. Think about it in politics. I mean, I could go off on this, okay? I mean, what if you change the politicians? They weren't allowed to say, you need to, okay? What if, or I need this, or you need this. What if they had to reframe it in the form of a question? How can we? Who do we know? That kind of thing. So anyway, if I could convey something, that I think that's the biggest, that and gratitude, of course. Gratitude, I could go off. I got a lot of stories on gratitude, but anyway, those are 2 that have served me well, and really they're overlapping. They're overlapping.
Yeah. And I just think that's such brilliant wisdom to end the show on, Lee. And I just think if people, take that to heart, ask more questions instead of looking for answers, I think
And why do you put that in a backpack? You know what I mean? It's like loading your backpack with, I need to do this, I need to do this, and I need to do this, and nothing gets done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Lee, this has been absolutely wonderful. I really appreciate your spending time with us today. Your insight and wisdom and just all your experiences and how you tell them in the form of stories, I think is helps make, those things so much more impactful. So I really personally want to thank you for being on the show today. And as we were chatting before the show starts, look forward to seeing you in St. George sometime very soon.
Fastest growing metro area in the United States, so you better get here quick.
Yeah, it definitely is growing, that's for sure. Well, you have a great day, Lee. Thanks
Hey,
again
Brian.
for your time, and thanks to all the listeners. And we'll be back for another episode of the Dream Architect Life. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Brian.